Why does Erika Kirk keep coming across as suspicious to many of you? We're going to break down the forensic psychology, behavior, and body language behind why you may feel uneasy and suspicious of her. So now, let's get started. Charlie ominously wrote to friends that he thought he was going to be assassinated.
Charlie Kirk is killed publicly in a very horrific way, and we're not really even allowed to look into that at all. And Charlie Kirk was one of President Trump's closest advisors, and he also advocated heavily against a war with Iran. And the last time I saw Charlie Kirk on this earth was in June in the West Wing, in the stairway, and I said hi to him, and he looked me in the eye, and he said very loudly, and it's a small, you've been in the West Wing, it's small, it's a tight space, and he said, "Joe, stop us from getting into a war with Iran." Very loudly.
When Charlie was visiting the White House, he reportedly knew that the U.S. would soon go to war with Iran, and was a vocal opponent of that potential future major war with Iran.
So when one of President Trump's closest advisors, who is vocally advocating for us to not go to war with Iran and for us to rethink at least our relationship with the Israelis. And then he's suddenly publicly assassinated, and we're not allowed to ask any questions about that.
Which, as you can imagine, that other nations that start with the letter I may not be very happy about that.
We've been told that this individual, Robinson, is a lone gunman, and maybe he is. But the investigation that I was a part of, the National Counterterrorism Center was a part of, we were stopped from continuing to investigate.
Well, somebody has fabricated a monstrous big lie that Israel had something to do with Charlie Kirk's horrific murder. This is insane.
Charlie was under a lot of pressure from a lot of pro-Israel donors. And again, we know Charlie was advocating to President Trump against this war with Iran.
Additionally, in the months leading up to his assassination, Charlie was reportedly breaking from supporting Israel.
What I'm saying about getting into too much detail is there was more for us to investigate. Basically cut off our access to be able to get into that information. We still had a lot more leads to run down that pertained to some kind of a foreign nexus that we were stopped from investigating.
There are now government insiders alleging that any attempts to investigate Charlie Kirk's assassination further, specifically uncovering if there was any foreign involvement, are apparently being squashed by the U.S. government.
The way the bureaucracy works is they can just kill things in process. That makes me furious that we're being blocked from that, and that we're not allowed to ask the question anymore. We're just not allowed to talk about it anymore. And I think that's absolute insanity.
You would follow up on those leads.
You would have to follow up on those leads.
But they shut them down. Yes. And that's a fact.
We are finally going to test the 30-06 versus a human neck.
Anyone who knows firearms knows that alleged 30-06 bullet that supposedly struck and assassinated Charlie Kirk does not make any sense.
I don't think this is going to help to stop the conspiracy theories. His head fell off.
Although those in firearms also know that bullets are known to do odd things, they don't do things like that. TPUSA, where Erika took over as CEO, has been claiming that Charlie's neck is basically made out of steel, magically stopping that massive bullet 30-06 from passing through his neck. Do you believe that?
That right there is why people are skeptical on the official story. The 30-06 is a very hard round to stop. And then you can see the wound cavity in the ballistics gel right there. It didn't even come close to stopping that bullet.
A massive 30-06 round would not have only passed through a human neck, but it sadly would have also nearly taken his head off his body.
Any 30-06 load can punch deep into any big game animal on the planet without any issue.
A 30-06 round is used to take down big game, like a 1,600-pound moose and a 1,500-pound Kodiak Alaskan grizzly bear. Therefore, a 30-06 round would have certainly passed through at least his neck.
From the fragments of the bullet, they were unable to determine that it came from that Mauser rifle.
I see.
A 30-06 is a big round.
Do you believe that Tyler Robinson murdered your husband?
Yes, I do.
Why do you think it is so hard for so many people to believe that reality?
Because it's too simple. Again, everyone always has to think there's more to the story. Well, sometimes there's not. I've seen the autopsy report. I've seen our case pulled together.
But why is Erika not open to investigating all possibilities, especially in cases like this, where the fatal wound is completely inconsistent with the alleged murder weapon?
It would have left his body, you're saying?
I think it would have blown a hole out the back. That's the thing. It seems weird that it doesn't have an exit hole.
Naturally, this makes many of us wonder, why does it seem like Erika is not open to getting big questions like this answered to ensure proper justice is done for her husband? Yes, understandably, that comes across to many of you as suspicious. Why? What's the cover-up here?
Why should we, prior to the trial, lay all of our hands and cards on the table for the defense team to see, to somehow then, I don't even know what they would do with it.
Some may argue that she's just blindly following whatever the prosecution is telling her, but this is the most obvious and most critical piece of evidence in the entire case. Because if the prosecution cannot convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt that the alleged 30-06 rifle was the weapon Tyler Robinson used to kill Charlie Kirk, then Tyler Robinson will naturally walk free. Now, how do you think the prosecution is going to attempt to prove that a 30-06 was used to assassinate Charlie, even though the fatal wound is completely inconsistent with a 30-06? The miracle explanation doesn't hold up very well in a court of law.
And the list goes on and on and on.
On the day of the assassination, there was a lot of very unexplained behavior that occurred. For example, why did Charlie Kirk's assistant, Mikey McCoy, who was standing behind Charlie's left, immediately get on his phone and walk away as soon as Charlie was shot? He didn't seem to show any surprise or shock, nothing. He just immediately and quietly gets on his phone and just walks away. He supposedly right there called Erika because he promised that he would call her immediately if something happened to Charlie, but zero emotion and not even trying to help save his friend first? When I first saw that, I thought it could have been his immediate fear response of flight, where that was his nope reaction, attempting to act as if he was preoccupied to not get shot himself and avoid the sight of blood even, and giving him the excuse that he was just calling Erika so he doesn't appear as a coward by blatantly running away. But why do you think he immediately acted like that?
Okay, there you go.
And then can you walk?
As I bend my knee, this pops forward a little bit, but there you go.
Okay, and that's with the scope.
Yeah. And those pictures of him in the stairwell, I've always thought, well, how do you walk upstairs with this? It seems difficult, because I can't really bend my leg. So you kind of have to do a weird step up.
Disassembling it one more time,
sure.
Just showing us.
So front action screw here.
Is that a special tool you would need?
Just an Allen wrench.
Okay, just an Allen wrench.
Disassemble a rifle so that you can get it in a backpack. And by the way, not going to fit.
Not going to fit in the back.
So.
Okay, and then show me how, so it still would not fit.
This story is horseshit.
The camera in the camera's memory card was removed that was filming behind Charlie by apparently a TPUSA employee. But this is a criminal investigation and anyone could be a suspect, especially because a solid suspect at this point in the investigation was not identified yet. How did the police on scene let them tamper with the crime scene here? And yet there's apparently a TPUSA employee without even a law enforcement escort handles some of the most critical of all critical evidence in a case. Yes, 4K camera footage of the moment when the crime occurred. And when TPUSA finally releases the footage behind Charlie, it appears to be poor quality and oddly cropped, hiding a major part of what happened. Even though in the past that camera angle behind Charlie was a very wide angle shot as seen here.
The image from the back, there's a video of him getting shot from the back. It doesn't leave an exit hole. So it doesn't look like it's that round.
Why isn't Erika Kirk asking these very important questions about TPUSA employees who are acting quite odd and suspicious?
And the list goes on and on and on.
The university is already making some changes. They're replacing the grass where Charlie Kirk was speaking with pavers.
The tent was right over in this area. It looked a lot different that day. This was all in grass. And so since then, I believe it was a Sunday right after they came in and paved it all over.
Now, just 4 days after the assassination occurred, the crime scene where Charlie was assassinated was oddly paved over. Do you know why that's a major problem? Yes, it drastically, of course, limits the possibility of doing any additional forensic investigation, but also prevents extremely accurate crime scene reconstruction and reenactment to reconstruct what happened that day. But nope, can't ever do that again. Do you know why? Yes, because in order to lay those pavers, they need to drastically change the height and grade of the ground, thereby making it impossible to ever accurately reconstruct what occurred that day ever again.
Weirdest thing for me was understanding the recent history within our nation when it came to political violence and the fact that there was no drones and there was very little security.
There's a direct line of sight between where he's sitting and those roofs. You guys didn't check? You don't have a drone?
On our way in, we had drone footage of the crowd building. Charlie had it on his phone. I said, Charlie, I don't like this place. There are too many buildings.
However, despite these many oddities, Erika doesn't seem very interested in investigating further.
Everyone always has to think there's more to the story. Well, sometimes there's not.
If something didn't seem right in your loved one's investigation, wouldn't you demand it be investigated further to ensure your loved one receives proper justice?
I have comedians dressing up in whiteface.
Erika is apparently deeply upset that a comedian is poking fun at her possibly odd recent behavior since her beloved husband and father of her children was assassinated, but oddly forgave her husband's assassin nearly immediately.
I forgive him. I forgive him because it was what Christ did and is what Charlie would do.
Now look at these thumbnail images from Charlie Kirk's YouTube channel immediately after he was assassinated. And what do you notice? Yeah, they were apparently using Charlie's very recent assassination to create clickbaity thumbnails. My friend was martyred. She forgave. Heartbroken with an arrow pointing at the guy speaking in a broken heart emoji. Yeah, it feels a little gross, as if they were thinking, don't let Charlie's assassination go to waste. We need as many clicks as possible. However, when I posted my Charlie Kirk videos after it sadly happened, which many of you have seen, I took the somber occasion into account.
When people stop talking, that's when you get violence. That's when civil war happens. Because you start to think the other side is so evil and they lose their humanity.
He believed humanity was better than this. And that's what makes this loss so heartbreaking. But apparently not them, and Charlie was their founder and CEO. Charlie wasn't even in the ground yet, or wherever he is now, which we'll discuss soon, but they seem to be using his assassination as clickbait. As I suggested earlier, where is Charlie Kirk's remains now? We actually don't know. Cemetery, cremated, Erika's backyard. We don't know, and they won't tell us. Yes, that's possibly for privacy reasons, to prevent grave disturbance, trespassing, vandalism, or unwanted public attention. However, just another thing that's quite weird in a very weird case.
Please give a warm welcome to Mrs. Erika Kirk.
The fact that we were able to pull off an event of a century, like, it's just insane. We had over 275,000 people that attended, and the stadium, overflow, Westgate, insane, you guys. And then you have, was it 100 million? We had thousands that were registered to vote.
The audio was leaked that just a few days after Charlie's assassination, Erika was gleefully bragging about merch sales during a company conference call.
I think we're at like over 200,000 for merch sales. Don't quote me on that because I think it just keeps like bumping up like crazy.
It's quite odd that the people who supposedly love Charlie Kirk are the same people who are so quick to just bring the register to maximize profits on Charlie Kirk's assassination.
And the list goes on and on and on. Widow.
Yes, in these clips, Erika's sudden emotional changes appears to be overacting, causing many to distrust her because we subconsciously compare emotional reactions to what seems natural for the situation. In these supposed authentic situations where she comes across as overly dramatic or rehearsed, it can feel manipulative or inauthentic. We are psychologically wired to notice inconsistencies in behavior, facial expressions, and tone. As a result, exaggerated behavior, as we see here, may trigger your suspicion that the person is hiding something or trying hard to convince you of something. which naturally causes you to wonder why. And given what we discussed earlier, that Erika was not overall behaving very somber, that her husband was assassinated, naturally causes many of you to become suspicious of Erika. And you may be asking, why is Erika acting like this if many of us feel it's fake and possibly motive driven? Yeah, there's a few reasons here. First, she probably thinks of herself as a much more talented actor than she clearly is.
Erika Franzwey, Arizona.
She competed for Miss USA as Miss Arizona.
Miss Arizona USA 2012 is Erika Franzwey.
I come from a great family that has very amazing genetics.
She did some TV hosting.
Hey guys, I'm Erika, filling in for Lauren this week. By now I'm sure you've heard all about the controversy between Donald Trump.
Performed in a odd CIA video.
So the concern that we have is that we put out this critical information, and when we go over this risk analysis, they hear what we're saying, but they don't want to take action.
And played on several reality TV shows.
You're a bright light in a very dark place.
So let's go grab a mojito. We'll go grab a drink.
Oh, fine.
Second, it appears she wants you to believe she's a grieving widow, while also possibly wanting you to believe she's a strong leader of a company her late husband founded. Therefore, that creates a psychological contradiction where she's trying to project vulnerability and authority at the same time, which can come across as performative rather than natural.
Everyone is asking why I even went to the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
I just want to go flying.
And it was because many of the journalists in that room have attempted to dehumanize me, and I wanted to meet some of them face to face, quite frankly.
When displays of emotion feel overly controlled, exaggerated, or strategically timed, you may begin questioning the authenticity behind those emotions. We subconsciously look for emotional consistency and congruency. So when something feels off, it can trigger distrust, even if we cannot explain why. That's why you may feel her behavior is more like impression management, and thereby feeling suspicious of her, rather than feeling her genuine emotion.
If you strip someone of their humanity long enough, you will arrive at the chilling conclusion that they don't deserve to exist at all.
Also, did you notice how she's dressed in this recent video about assassinations? Yes, Erika appears to have dressed up like an assassin, looking like she's a movie character hit woman in a black shirt buttoned all the way up to her neck and wearing a black hat. Therefore, given what we discussed earlier about how it appears Erika is not interested in investigating further into her late husband's cause of death, it results in some to wonder if she's subliminally flaunting something more sinister to the viewers.
Please welcome Turning Point USA CEO and Chair, Erika Kirk.
Now, the grieving widow, Erika Kirk, gets introduced to crowds in WWE style, sometimes even wearing flashy, sparkly outfits. Therefore, the stark contrast between the image of a devastating grieving widow and the highly performative, attention-grabbing presentation can create psychological dissonance for many viewers. People naturally expect grief to appear more subdued, private, and emotionally grounded. So when someone appears highly theatrical or image-focused, it may feel inconsistent with those expectations. That mismatch can make audiences question whether the emotional presentation is authentic or strategically crafted.
You're the CEO and chairwoman of Turning Point. She's trying to make it a binary choice. You can be the trad wife or the girl boss, but look at her. She's having both. What do you say to them?
Right. Well, I didn't ask for this. Obviously it's a blessing that I view it as a blessing. It's a duty to my husband.
Where many have begun to believe that maybe she wanted the power and status of becoming CEO the entire time, rather than simply stepping into the role out of grief or necessity. Although I think we can all recognize that different people grieve differently. However, I think all of us have never seen someone behave like this when their beloved husband and father of their children was tragically assassinated at such a young age. Therefore, her behavior stands out to many of you as psychologically unusual. Not necessarily because there is a correct way to grieve, I think we all can recognize that, but because her public presentation feels so heavily performative and image-driven so soon after a tragic personal event. And what I shared with you here aren't even the conspiracy theories in this case, but just real questions that anyone with a skeptical bone in their body would ask. Now in the comments, what is the biggest reason for you for why Erika Kirk may appear suspicious? Let everyone know in the comments below. Subscribe for more. And if you want exclusive content and channel perks, hit that join button now below, because your support makes all of this possible. There is a lot of questions that need to be answered around Charlie's assassination, but it's curious why Erika Kirk appears uninterested in seeking to get those questions answered, but seems more interested in using her husband's assassination to springboard her personal political ambitions. See you next time.
This was happening while I was out elk hunting. Like I said, I was in Utah at the time.
Oh,
of this
you were?
happening. Yeah, I was hunting in the mountains.
Well, that's interesting.
So this just happened. We just found out that Charlie Kirk got shot. Whoa. Yeah. I don't know nothing.